Under the endless stretch of a midnight sky, where stars glimmered like scattered secrets, there was a silence that held weight, an unspoken story between two souls who once stood side by side, caught between fame, fate, and feelings too deep to name. Starlit Confessions wasn't just about the lights above. It was about what lay beneath, the truth hidden in the spaces between words, in the glances exchanged when cameras stopped rolling, and the quiet heartbeat that refused to fade. The scene opens in a dimly lit studio. The cameras have long been turned off, the stage cleared, and yet Wang Yibo remains seated on the edge of the platform, head bowed, eyes fixed on the gleaming floor beneath his boots. The world sees him as the unshakable idol, cold, distant, untouchable. But tonight, he looks like a man carrying constellations in his chest, each star a memory, each light a moment he can't forget. Across the room, a faint sound of a door closing breaks the stillness. Xiao Zhan steps in, wrapped in quiet confidence and calm grace. His presence is like the soft glow of the moon, steady, comforting, and yet filled with a mystery that draws every eye to him. "Still here?" Xiao Zhan asks, his voice low, almost a whisper that carries through the empty space. Wang Yibo looks up, a faint smile curving his lips. "Couldn't sleep. The lights out there. They remind me of those nights on set." And just like that, the memories flood back. The laughter, the silent understanding, the electric charge that buzzed between them even when surrounded by cameras and crew. The Untamed may have ended years ago, but the connection between them never truly dimmed. It only transformed, evolving into something deeper, unspoken, and more profound than words could define. As they sit together, the silence feels alive. Every glance is a confession, every sigh a story. Xiao Zhan leans back, eyes tracing the ceiling as if he's reading constellations that only he can see. "You ever wonder," he says softly, "if some things were written in the stars long before we got here?" Wang Yibo chuckles lightly. "If that's true, then maybe we were always meant to meet, even if the world wasn't ready for it." The tension is delicate but undeniable, the kind that holds both warmth and ache. Between them lies a truth both fragile and fierce, one that fame tries to silence, but the heart insists on remembering. A flashback strikes. A scene under rain, the two of them filming a late-night sequence years ago. Xiao Zhan had stumbled slightly on the wet ground, and before anyone could react, Yibo's hand shot out, steadying him. The crew laughed, but the look they exchanged lingered far beyond the laughter. That moment wasn't scripted, it was instinct, real. And in Starlit Confessions, those moments take center stage. The article shifts into an almost cinematic rhythm. Imagine a late-night interview, one of those rare occasions when Yibo allows himself to be vulnerable. The host asks him about trust, about friendship in an industry known for masks and performances. He pauses, eyes dropping, and then says quietly, "There are people you meet once, and they stay with you forever. Even when you don't talk every day, their presence doesn't fade." Fans watching immediately knew who he meant. The chat exploded with hearts and tears, hashtags rising like constellations of their own. Back in that studio, Xiao Zhan laughs, a sound that breaks through the silence like sunlight. "You still talk like you're hiding poems behind your words." "Maybe I am," Yibo replies, meeting his gaze. "Some feelings can't be said directly. You just let the stars say them for you." The lights flicker slightly, and for a heartbeat, it feels as if time has stopped. The air is charged with something beautiful and bittersweet. In that instant, both of them know, what they share goes beyond collaboration. It's a connection forged in vulnerability, tested by distance, and strengthened by the quiet understanding that fame can't destroy something written in the universe itself. Outside the studio, the world continues. Fans speculate, media spins stories, rumors rise and fade. But inside, under those studio lights, there is only truth. As the night deepens, Xiao Zhan stands, walking toward the glass wall overlooking the city. The skyline glitters below, every light a dream, a wish, a reminder of the paths they've both walked, together, apart, and together again in ways no one else could ever understand. I used to think, Xiao Zhan says softly, that stars were cold. But maybe they're just distant, like people trying to shine from far away. Yibo joins him at the window, standing close enough that their reflections blur into one. Maybe, he murmurs, the distance isn't a curse. Maybe it's how we learn to keep shining. The reflection in the glass shows two silhouettes side by side, distinct yet united, different yet harmonized. It's a quiet confession, a visual echo of everything they never said aloud. From that night forward, Starlit Confessions becomes more than a story. It becomes a legend whispered across fandoms, a tale of two artists whose souls communicate in silences and whose eyes tell stories no script could capture. Months later, Yibo releases a song. No title, no fanfare, just a midnight drop on his personal page. The melody is hauntingly beautiful, soft piano layered with a whisper of guitar. But what catches everyone's attention are the lyrics. You were the calm before my storm, the echo in my quiet sky. Even when the lights go out, you're the reason stars don't die. The fandom loses its collective breath. The comments section explodes with speculation, but Yibo remains silent, simply posting a single star emoji. Hours later, Xiao Zhan reposts it with one word. Beautiful. And that's when the internet goes into a frenzy. The two names trend together again, not because of controversy but because of connection. Because even in silence, they still find ways to speak to each other, to the stars, to everyone who's ever believed in something wordless and pure. As the story unfolds, the article paints a vivid picture of starlight and emotion, a universe built between two souls who refuse to let distance, fame, or fear dim what they share. There's a closing scene imagined like a final cinematic moment. The two of them stand on a rooftop, the city glowing beneath them, the night wind whispering through the air. Yibo looks up at the sky and murmurs, "You ever think stars get lonely?" Xiao Zhan smiles, eyes soft. Not when they have another star beside them. Their laughter blends with the wind, quiet but infinite, echoing across the vastness of the night. And as the camera pans out, stars overhead, city below, their silhouettes merge with the light, two figures standing together in a world that often forgets how to listen to silence. Starlit Confessions isn't a story about fame. It's about understanding, about the power of shared moments that outshine the noise of the world. It's about Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan, two souls who found, beneath the glare of spotlights, a space of stillness where truth could exist unspoken. The night after that fateful meeting in the empty studio lingered in both their minds like a secret song, one that refused to end. The city outside was alive with noise and lights, but for Wang Yibo, everything felt strangely quiet. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that look in Xiao Zhan's eyes, calm, knowing, and filled with something too deep to define. The world saw them as stars, bright, polished, perfect. But behind that brilliance was the weight of solitude, the kind only those who have touched fame's cold edge could understand. Yibo sat by his apartment window, watching the city lights fade into dawn. His reflection stared back, half shadow, half dream. Somewhere in the distance, he imagined Xiao Zhan doing the same, under the same sky, maybe even thinking of that unfinished conversation. He picked up his phone, fingers hovering over Xiao Zhan's name in his contacts. For a long moment he didn't move. What could he say that wouldn't sound foolish? I can't stop thinking about that night. Too honest. You should rest more. Too ordinary. So he locked his phone again, exhaling softly. But fate, as it always does, had its own plans. The next week, Yibo received an unexpected invitation to join a charity gala that Xiao Zhan was headlining. He hesitated, knowing how the public would react if they appeared in the same frame again. Yet something inside him whispered, go. And so, under the dazzling lights of the event, their paths crossed once more. The ballroom shimmered like a dream, gold chandeliers, laughter, and the faint notes of a live orchestra floating in the air. Yibo entered quietly, his presence commanding yet understated. Cameras turned instantly, fans gasped, the press buzzed. But when his eyes found Xiao Zhan across the room, Everything else faded into silence. Xiao Zhan stood near the stage, dressed in black velvet, his smile effortless and warm. When their gazes met, time paused. No words were exchanged, but an entire conversation passed between them, one that only they could hear. Later, when Xiao Zhan took the stage to perform, Yibo stayed in the shadows, watching. The lights bathed Xiao Zhan in a soft glow, every note he sang echoing with emotion. It wasn't just a performance, it was a confession in melody. And in that moment, Yibo realized something. Sometimes art was the only way to say what the heart couldn't. After the performance, when the applause faded and the crowd began to disperse, Yibo found himself near the balcony. The night air was cool, scented faintly of rain. He leaned on the railing, gazing at the stars again, the same stars that seemed to haunt every corner of his thoughts. "You came," a familiar voice said from behind. Yibo turned, and there he was, Xiao Zhan, a quiet smile playing on his lips. "I did," Yibo replied. "Couldn't miss it." They stood in silence for a while, the kind of silence that felt alive, full of everything unsaid. "I heard your new track," Xiao Zhan finally said. "The one you dropped without warning. It felt personal." Yibo smirked faintly. "Maybe it was. Maybe it's just a song." But Xiao Zhan's eyes softened. "You've never been good at hiding meanings, Yibo." Yibo laughed quietly, shaking his head. "You know me too well." And then, like a scene suspended between dream and reality, the rain began to fall. Light at first, then steady, the kind of rain that carries nostalgia in its rhythm. Instead of running for cover, they stayed there, side by side, letting the droplets paint silver trails on their skin. "Do you ever think about the past?" Ba asked, voice low. "All the time," Xiao Zhan replied. "But not because I miss it. 'Cause I carry it. It's part of who I am now." Yibo looked at him, something flickering behind his gaze. "Even the hard parts. Especially the hard parts." There was something magnetic in the honesty between them, something rare and raw. Every glance, every breath felt like the continuation of that first starlit confession, the unspoken understanding that had never truly left them. The rain softened, and as it did, Xiao Zhan tilted his head slightly, smiling. "You know, Yibo, stars aren't just beautiful because they shine. They're beautiful because they survive the dark." The words hit Yibo like a pulse of light. He looked up at the sky, clouded yet faintly shimmering. "Then maybe," he said softly, "we're both stars after all." Their laughter, quiet, genuine, drifted into the night. The world beyond that balcony could spin with rumors, theories, and noise, but here there was peace. Two souls who had once stood on opposite sides of chaos now found comfort in simply being. When they parted that night, it wasn't with goodbyes. It was with understanding. Yibo watched Xiao Zhan disappear into the glow of the lobby, a silent smile lingering on his face. The rain had stopped, but the stars had returned, scattered across the velvet sky like promises waiting to be kept. Back in his apartment later, Yibo sat at his desk, pen in hand, notebook open. The words came easily this time, flowing like the melody of a forgotten song. "We met beneath the same sky. Our worlds divided, yet aligned. In silence you spoke. In distance I found you again." He didn't plan to release it. It wasn't a song, it was a letter to the stars, to a connection too delicate to define. Days turned into weeks, and while life moved on, projects, interviews, travels, there was a shift in Yibo's music, in Xiao Zhan's performances. Fans noticed it immediately. The tone, the emotion, the subtle references. It was as if they were speaking through their art, continuing a dialogue across time and distance. At a fan event months later, a reporter asked Yibo what inspired his latest work. He smiled faintly, eyes distant, and replied, "Some lights stay with you, even when you think they've faded." And that night, social media lit up with one phrase. #Starlit Confessions continues Crescent Moon. The legend grew, not because of drama or gossip, but because of the sincerity behind it. Two artists, bound by understanding, expressing truths too fragile for words, too pure for spectacle. And if you looked closely enough, at their performances, their quiet interviews, their subtle smiles, you'd see it. The echo of that night under the stars, when rain turned into laughter, and silence became the language of two souls who had already said everything without speaking at all.